Started on this beautiful evening. We're getting close to the holiday of Shavuot. It's exactly a week away. We're hitting sundown in around half an hour on this Thursday evening. And next Thursday evening brings in this incredible packed holiday. While the other holidays of the year, Sukkot and Pesach, are the two major biblical holidays recorded in the Torah, Shavuot is in the Torah one day, and we fulfill it for 2 days in the diaspora. But it's probably the most essential day of the year because it's the day we became who we are. We became a Jewish people. We were given our Torah. We were given our purpose, our mission, our mandate of being a light unto the nations, of spreading goodness and kindness, and doing it with Torah and mitzvot. So it's a day we became Jewish. We became a people. And it's a day every year we renew our vows. Someone actually recently was asking me if I could renew their vows. It's an interesting thing if it's a Jewish concept or not. So we had a nice discussion. But one way of renewing our vows is we do every year on the holiday of Shavuot, where we entered in a matrimony with God Almighty. And it's not supposed to be stagnant. It's always supposed to be refreshed and we renewed. And we do that on Shavuot. I know on a personal level, I have my mother-in-law tuning in this evening. And it's a very special day for my in-laws and for my father-in-law. Particularly, that's the day when he was in his early 30s. And he was exploring his truth and his roots of Judaism, and went into and studied in yeshiva. He really asked himself this question: is this for me? And it was a very intellectual path for my father-in-law. Some of you know part of his story. And the holiday of Shavuot, he said, "This is mine, whether I understand it now fully or not." And he learned that from the holiday of Shavuot, which is when the Jewish people made the commitment to God before even we saw all the details of the contract. Meaning before we read the fine print, which every lawyer tells you have to read every word before signing anywhere, we knew if it's coming from God, it's something we want. It's just like in a relationship. If it's my spouse asking for it, I'm saying yes before she even asks what it is, because it's coming from the person in my life. It's coming from my love. So the same is with God. God says, "Do you want this?" And we said yes. And then we said we commit to study it also. But the holiday of Shavuot is that commitment of being in a relationship with God, whether it fully adds up in logic or even if I'm still not there yet. And my father-in-law came to that realization. It was a leap of faith, literally. And that's what we are each given, that same gift from our neshama, to connect with God, not only on a logical basis, but on a, I don't know what the word is, a super logical or illogical, something like that. All right. So we'll continue this evening with our exciting Pirkei avot class. I've been really enjoying it. On Shabbos, when I study it again, I have a lot more insight now, thanks to a lot of people's discussion and commentaries and illumination on the text. So we will continue. I'm using a few books. Every week I'm pulling out another couple books. We have a Pirkei avot, which is the one that we're going to put on the screen. This is the one, what it looks like as a book. I'm also using the one that Jolie ordered. It's one from actually the collector of these commentaries. It's actually a friend of mine. He's the Chabad rabbi in San Mateo. And last year he came to our synagogue. He came to our center. He came to our shul to speak about the book of Tehillim, which he also wrote an incredible commentary. And I just pulled off the shelf. It's been years since I pulled it out. But it's another book also based on Pirkei avot. It's called Beyond the Letter of the Law. And I've enjoyed this also. It takes different texts and it teaches based on the Rebbe's guidance. And it's interesting actually why I'm explaining clearly where I'm getting the sources from. Is in one of the Mishnah texts we're going to be exploring together. It says you should always quote the author of a teaching. You should always quote who you heard it from, and that actually brings redemption to the world. It redeems the text. It redeems the world. So I wanted to make sure to get that out there. All right, let's continue our exploration like we've done in the past. I will share the screen. I hope that's been working for everyone, that it's not been too hard to follow the text over the screen, and I'll try to zoom in as much as possible. Okay, and if I haven't said this before, you're welcome to unmute yourself and stay unmuted, or mute yourself, whatever you feel more comfortable. if there's a lot of noise coming from specifically one's part, I'll unmute them. But I think you have the ability to unmute yourself as we go. All right. So we'll start with the first Mishnah. It's speaking about one of the most fundamental things in Torah is learning for the sake of the Torah, not for any other ulterior motive. Many of us know all too well having ulterior motives, right? We do things because eventually it's going to come back to us. Eventually, it's whether you call it karma or whatever else. But over here, the idea of learning Torah for the sake of learning Torah is the most incredible gift. It's called learning lishma. And a couple of years ago, I had a very beautiful meeting with my main teacher. His name is Rabbi Shachat, and he's in Los Angeles. He's an educator in the La Brea, Fairfax area of Los Angeles. And I was talking to him about learning Torah, and he quoted me this Mishnah, which I've learned many times, but he was just ingraining in me the power of learning for the sake of learning. And all right, so let's just dig into it, and I'll keep my commentaries for another time. How about that? Jolie, are you able to begin? It's a pretty long Mishnah, and we'll maybe we'll read all of it. It goes through a long list of things that we're called, but go for it.
Okay. The sages taught the following statements in Hebrew, the language of the Mishnah. Blessed is God, who chose the sages and their teachings. Rabbi Meir says, whoever involves himself in Torah learning for its own sake, because it is a commandment, will merit many good things. Not only that, but even the creation of the entire world is worthwhile just for him. Some of the many things he merits are, he is called a friend and beloved of God. He loves God and he loves God's creations. He makes God happy and he makes people happy. The Torah clothes and surrounds him with humility and awe of God. It prepares him to be righteous, dedicated to God, upright and trusted. It also distances him from sin and brings him close to merit. People enjoy his good advice, wisdom, understanding, and strength. As it says in Proverbs, good advice and wisdom are mine, says the Torah. I am understanding, strength is mine. The Torah gives these good qualities to those who learn it. The Torah also gives him royalty and authority and the ability to judge properly. The secrets of the Torah are revealed to him. He becomes like a fountain that flows with ever-increasing strength and like a river that never stops flowing. He becomes modest, patient, and forgiving when he is insulted. The Torah makes him great, and it raises him above all things. Is there more? Should I keep reading?
Oh, no, that's perfect. I'm digesting this mission. I'm just going to zoom out in case people want to see the entirety of the text.
Rabbi, I had a thought when I was, because, I'm reading it and it's, scrolling out to me because I didn't do my homework. I didn't read it beforehand. So it's like being unveiled as I'm reading it.
Yeah.
And it's answering an essential question for me, which, in Judaism, we don't believe in magic. We believe in practical application of mitzvot, real things in life, real helping. But there's this magical aspect to the Torah, and I don't mean that in a denigrating way. And I've wondered, there's constant there's an admonition: read the Torah, study the Torah, do the mitzvot. And I'm thinking, well, is it like an ingredient? A thing where you make cookies, you're going to put stuff in, you're going to get cookies. And this is kind of the cookies. This is so interesting. I've just never read this
awesome
way that it's written here before.
Beautiful. So that's so well said. And you're right, it is magic. Even though Jews, it's magic, it's not our thing. But if you're looking for something magical, you find it in the Torah. It's almost speaking a language that is just the neshama it relates to. It's like a secret weapon. But over here, the key, it's such a beautiful key. It's the way to learn Torah has to be for the right sake, because it's the Torah from Hashem, and Hashem wants us to learn it. On Wednesday mornings, we're giving a Tanya class, and one of the most incredible lines is from chapter 5, where it says, when you learn Torah, you're creating a bond, a harmony, a unity, a union with God that is like, usually the author of the Tanya, he comes up with beautiful examples and things and to explain. But this, he says, that there's no example you could explain for such a unity. a union and a harmony that is being unified between a Jew and the Torah learning. And I find that to be very present here. The idea of learning Torah simply because it's Hashem's Torah. And when you do that, you get uplifted. You're called, can you imagine what it means? I think when it says a friend, it's talking about a friend of God. The original thing, I'm just going to see if my mouse could get there. Some of the many things he merits are, the first thing, you're a friend. You're like in on the secrets. You're like on a first name basis almost with God, if we could say that, just from learning Torah. But the hardest, it's actually a hard thing, and especially as a rabbi, I'll divulge a secret. So many times I learn, but whenever I learn, I'm like, this is perfect to share. This is a great material for a sermon. It's always, not always, but it could very easily just be, I'm going to learn because I need to share something, the Shabbos table, or because I committed, someone has to learn together and I want to learn with him, or her, so we're going to learn together. My mentor, even though I have many hours of my day that I spend learning, and I actually just today started a new one with, this is actually a good one. 15 years ago, before I was married and before obviously we moved to Nevada, and I was, maybe 14 years ago, I was 20, and I was a rabbinical student in Miami. And there was around 50 students, maybe 60 students, and I was a young mentor. And I would learn with them, and I've been in touch with them, but I've never kept up a learning with them. And a lot of them just don't learn Torah anymore. They're busy with families and then obviously business. And I just started today learning. I told them I'm learning Tanya with them. I just started, mainly because I'm enjoying learning Tanya here in our community. So I just started with them. So I learned Torah a lot, but my mentor said you also have to learn Torah not for the sake of learning for other people, but just learn a random subject that is not relatable to anyone and just bring it out. And that's learning Torah just because it's Hashem's Torah, not because of any good lines or witty statements that you could find. Out of all of these, I love that there's almost like the combination that on one hand, the Torah clothes and it surrounds you with humility. But on the other hand, I think one of the later lines Jolie was reading was, okay, you become modest. That's similar, but at the same time, you have that increasing strength, and secrets of the Torah are revealed to you. You're like with royalty. It's like almost this beautiful combination that on one hand, you have the humility and the modesty, and at the same time, you're given a strength and a conviction and a confidence and maybe even a little chutzpah in your learning, which is so powerful and beautiful. Does anyone have anything that they would like to share on this incredible Mishnah? Let's see. So let's also read. So the wording, let's read the commentaries from the Rebbe. Jolie, I'll still call on you to read the commentaries on it. And then we'll go on to the next Mishnahs. Commentary 1, it says, in the English, it says, whoever involves himself in Torah. And in the Hebrew, the word is osek. Osek could mean, it means one thing, but it's an occupation. You're occupying yourself with it. Another word for saying learning Torah is limud Torah. Limud means to learn Torah. But over here, it's involving yourself. It's occupying yourself with Torah. It's throwing yourself into Torah. In Hebrew, the word for business is also asek. A businessman is called a bal asek. A businesswoman is called a balat asek. Asek means business. But the word over here for Torah is not just involving yourself. And there is like, Torah became your business. That's one way to learn it. But Jolie, I'm going to zoom in on these commentaries. If you don't mind, I'm just going to, there you go. Is that clearer? I think that's.
Yeah, that's fine. So
that.
number 1, you want me to read? Alternately, conduct business in Torah. This means that we should use business ethics to enhance the honor of the Torah. Just as confident business people spend much time and energy finding customers, we must similarly find customers with whom to learn Torah. This will bring honor to the Torah because it will show that we recognize its great value and need to share it with others.
Awesome.
Rebbe.
Awesome.
That's nice.
That's really nice. Thank you. And let's see, number 2 was also on this. It makes, it's such a beautiful statement. the Torah, it's the person learning Torah makes God happy, and he makes people happy. Let's see what that means. Number 2 also, Jolie, if you can read that one.
When we love another person, they do not necessarily feel it or gain anything from it. For this reason, we are taught that loving people is not enough. We must also make them happy. This means that our love must make people happy. We must make sure that it has a positive effect on them.
Awesome. So love is such a beautiful thing, and we talk about love, and it's such an incredible quality. But love on its own is just my feeling toward you. I have to express that feeling and make you happy. And that's taking it a step further and reaching out and bring the joy to them. That's beautiful. Thank you, Jolie. Awesome. Okay. Does anyone have anything they would like to share before we continue on? I can't see everyone right now. And I'd like to welcome Debbie, who just joined, I think. I can't see you yet, but I think you're somewhere there. Okay, we'll go on to... Oh, yeah, I see you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so there's an expression, love is a verb, that I thought of when you were talking about that. You know, it's you have to show love by your actions.
Yeah, very well said. Okay, let's continue now with Mishnah 3. Peter, do you want to read this one? And oh, you're muted, Peter. Do you know what? Let me try to unmute you. Hold on one second. All right, Peter, you're unmuted. Talk. Let me hear.
Okay.
I can hear you. Perfect.
Someone who learns a single chapter, a single chapter, a single law, a single verse, a single statement, or even a single letter of Torah from his friend must treat him with honor. For we find this by David, the king of Israel, that he learned only 2 things from Ahithophel: to learn together with other people rather than alone, and to walk with others and with excitement when going to learn. And he called him his rabbi, his leader, and his teacher. As King David says to Ahithophel in the Psalms, "You are a man equal to me. You are my leader and my teacher. Surely this leads..." Surely this leads us to an obvious conclusion. If David, the king of Israel, learned only 2 things from Ahithophel and still called him his rabbi, his leader, and his teacher, then if an ordinary person learns a single chapter, a single law, a single verse, a single statement, or even a single letter of Torah from his friend, and how much more so must he treat him with honor? Honor is deserved only for Torah, as it says in Proverbs, "The sages will inherit honor. The perfect ones will inherit good, and only Torah is truly good," as it says in Proverbs 1. God, I have given you a good teaching. Do not forsake my Torah.
Beautiful. So let's find out more who this Achitophel was. Achitophel started off as a really good guy. He was an advisor to David. He kind of soured. David had a tough life. Many of us are familiar with some of it. Part of his difficult period was when his own son, his firstborn, whose name was Avshalom, tried to assassinate his father so he could become the king. And he actually went around and he rallied a big group, and they became almost like an army, and they were ready to attack. Achitophel joined his son's rebellion. And yet, it's talking about over here, even this sour Achitophel, David felt honored to him because he taught him 2 things. What were the 2 things that Achitophel taught David? And by the way, I just want you to know, we think of David as the warrior. David actually spent most of his time studying Torah. David had to deal with a general whose name was Yoav. Some of you may have an Israeli friend named Yoav. It's a pretty common Israeli name. Yoav was the general of the army, and they had a deal. David said, I'm going to learn Torah on my behalf and on yours. And Yoav was going to defend the Jewish people at war on David's behalf and on his. So he fulfilled his obligation, and he fulfilled the other's obligation. But David was a Torah giant. And yet over here, Achitophel taught him something, taught him two things, and he found the need to honor him. And it's an incredible thing of honoring someone. Even if they taught you something so small, something so little, you should still show respect and honor to them. Think about it in your life. I'll just try to relate this. There are certain people that it's very easy to honor them because they taught you such important things and they stand out. When you walk by a certain place or someone says a certain thing or you hear a certain song, you think of this person and you just have the urge to call them and say, thank you for everything you've done. But then there's other people who they don't come to your mind to think. Like, for example, your third grade teacher. Maybe he or she wasn't your favorite teacher, but they taught you things. So it doesn't really come across as something earth-shattering that they taught you, but that's someone also who we have to show respect to, even if it's something small that they taught you. The two things that Achitophel taught was, number one, you shouldn't enter the study hall, the yeshiva, the synagogue, with erect posture, which means you shouldn't be too proud entering. You should enter with a little bit of humility and a little bit of a, I don't know if the word is hunched over, but a little bit of a modest posture, I guess. And also, you shouldn't study alone. You should always study with a partner. It's a much better way of studying. In Hebrew, it's called a chavruta, which is a friend, another person. What's interesting over here, the way we learned it, there's two parts to in Hebrew, the word is a kal v'chomer. For those that joined our, in November, we gave a Judaism Decoded class. We were learning how the Torah is expounded and how we learn laws from the Torah. One of the ways is called a kal v'chomer. When you have something that's lighter, right, Jolie, it looks like you remember that, and something that's a chomer, something that's stricter, you can learn one from the other. If this applies by this case, you should also apply it by the other case. So in the way we're learning it here is if David was honoring Achitophel, for sure we, who are not David, should be honoring another. But there's another nuance to this learning, is David learned two things. But over here it's saying, for sure you should also honor someone when you learn one thing. I just found that, I don't know if I need to expand on that too much, but it's like a second part to the Kal V'chomer that is a little more confusing in it, is that David learned two things, but that's an automatic that we should also honor someone who teaches us one thing. Okay. Anyone has anything they would like to share on this Mishnah? Okay. The next one is going to be a heated one. But you know what? Let's see if there was a commentary that we missed over. No, I guess not. Oh, here we go. Number 2. Okay, let's see this commentary from the Rebbe. Peter, you still there? Do you mind reading? Let me zoom in a little bit. It's probably a little small text. Are you able to read number 2, the one I'm circling right here? Go for it.
It's Breita.
Yeah, a Breita is so I'll just give you a little bit of an explanation what a Breita is. We have 3 types of wordings in the Talmud. One is called the Mishnah, which is the basic shortened version, and later that became expanded. They discussed it, and that's known as the Gemara, or more known as the Talmud. But Mishnah doesn't include all the discussions of Rabbi Akiva. They weren't all able to be incorporated in the Mishnah. So whatever was not incorporated in the Mishnah, they made a separate section, a separate book, and they called it the Breita. So it includes a bunch of teachings. A lot of it is more elaborated than the Mishnah, but it doesn't hold the same authority and power as the Mishnah, which means if there's ever a contradiction between a Mishnah and a Breita, meaning a dissenting opinion in a Breita with the Mishnah, we'll follow the rule of the Mishnah. But the Breita is definitely a strong source It's second to the Mishnah, basically. Anyway, continue.
You start with number 1 or number 2?
I would say number 2. I think number 1 is on the previous part.
Okay. Why does the Braita use the word only in reference to learning from Achitophel, not later in reference to learning from anyone? Something learned mechavero, from a fellow Jew, grows and develops with you. Things learned from a wicked person, such as Achitophel, do not grow and develop. You're only left with the exact thing that you learned.
That's awesome.
The Rebbe.
Beautiful. So when you learn with a chaver, when you learn with a friend, it develops, it grows. There's more to learn. There's more to learn from. But Achitophel, not as much. And therefore, the term used in this Braita, which is this chapter of Mishnah, it's called, they use the word only. Okay. Let's continue on to Mishnah 4. This is going to be, unless anyone has another commentary, we'll continue on. This is going to be a tougher one to sell. Let's see. Shira, can we go with you? Are you able to unmute yourself, Shira?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is a tougher one, and let's see if we could understand it. Go for it. Number 4.
This is the way to master Torah. Eat bread with salt, drink small amounts of water, sleep on the ground, live a life of hardship without indulging in physical pleasures, and work hard in Torah. In Psalms it says that if you do this, you will be fortunate and it will be good for you. You will be fortunate in this world and it will be good for you in the world to come.
So this is a tough one. This tickles me the wrong way because I don't just eat bread with salt, and I think I'm okay in my Torah, meaning there's always more to do, but I don't think that's the type of life we should live. To drink only small amounts of water is probably not so healthy. Why choose to live a life of hardship and sleep on the ground? I don't think this is the proper way, but this is what the Mishnah is saying, right? And I'm wondering, it doesn't say who the author of this Mishnah is. So there is some beautiful commentaries, specifically one. It's not, I'm going to quote it from the Chida, who lived some 400 years ago. He says that this brisa is not advocating asceticism. It's not telling you to be removed from the world and distant and take on this hardships. It's telling you that Torah should be your main focus. Meaning, of course, have a job and sleep with a pillow, but that shouldn't be what you're indulging in. That shouldn't be your primary agenda in life. Meaning, having a nice car to drive is important so you don't get in an accident and that you're not making a chilul Hashem. I'll just stop for a second and explain that. A chilul Hashem means desecrating God's name. And as Jews, we know this all too well, that wherever we go, we're not only representing ourselves, we're representing the Jewish community and the Jewish people. And when we know that I'll just tell you, de Blasio, over and over again, he's sending out tweets saying the Jewish community of New York, when there is 500 people showing up at a funeral. If you're following the news, but he bans them all together. And in fact, I think he's Jewish himself. But that's just the way the world works a little bit. So I just remember once I was a 17-year-old boy, just went to LA for yeshiva, and the yeshiva let us go with a rabbinical student watching over us to at the Chabad of Malibu, it's beautiful. It's literally on the PCH, on the Pacific Coast Highway, right across from the Malibu Pier. Gorgeous place. And we came for Shabbos. We were able to spend the Shabbos with him, and it was very inspiring. But so we pulled in on Friday afternoon. He lives up atop Malibu cliff, overlooking the water. It's gorgeous. And we were praying that our old stinky van makes it up this cliff. And literally, we're praying, and our van is rolling down, and we're making its way up. We finally get to the top, and he runs out of his house. He's like, "Get that chilul Hashem out of my driveway." He was like, "That can't be seen around my Chabad." So we had to roll it all the way back down. But we have to be careful with how we, of course, the car drive. Okay, I don't know even how we got into this, but the point is, we have to be careful acting accordingly but not being aesthetic. What's the word? Living life that's removed. But at the same time, our primary Torah focus is Torah, meaning the rest is not that we're fully oblivious to, but it's not our main concern. So if there's a little dent on our car, it's a hardship, and there's insurance papers that we have to fill out, but my life wasn't ruined. And it's reminding ourselves of our true identity, which is Torah, and it's being Jewish. And it's not something added to us, and our car is our main thing. I think that's an important understanding of it. And finally, just one more thing. The Rebbe actually totally banned any of this. So, and that's something novel, because it's very unusual for a Rebbe or for any leader now to put off something that a Mishnah puts in. And yet, starting with the Baal Shem Tov, they started frowning upon people who fast for many days as a form of penitence. Of course, we have the fasts of Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, and there's 4 other during the year it's obligated according to the Torah. But adding to what's in the Torah is not required, and in fact, it's not even appropriate. So the Rebbe actually didn't allow Hasidim to. There was maybe very few exceptions, like maybe before the 6-day war. But the Rebbe said the way to make a difference is by adding joy, increasing light, not by removing yourself more from the world and causing more hardships. So anyway, that's my little thoughts. And actually the main reason is because the longer you fast and the more you're neglecting yourself and sleeping on a floor, the weaker you get. That's a fact. If you're eating bread and water with salt, your mind is not clear anymore. You're living a weaker type of lifestyle, and you can't be healthy and strong to serve God with that type of lifestyle. So it worked in the older generation when they were stronger, and it works for some, but the Rebbe didn't, it was frowned upon in Hasidism, and the Rebbe, I think, totally threw this out. That's my thoughts. Shira, you had something to share? Please.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, and I'm glad that the Rebbe actually banned this or spoke against this.
Yeah.
Because asceticism and all of that reminds me of what the Christians used to do with the self-flagellation and the fasting and the wearing of hair shirts and all that. And I would like to think that Jews set themselves apart by finding the joy in things.
Yeah. And exactly. So, but even and just to continue on your lines, self-flagellation, is that hitting yourself? Yeah. So that actually was never allowed in Torah, because the Torah actually makes it very clear, "Ushmartem me'od lenafshotechem," that we have to guard our souls very well, and therefore that was actually forbidden. And that's why I think we mentioned it before. By a funeral, we're not allowed to cut our skin, which is what they did in the pagan world. We actually have to cut our clothing to show our pain, but we're not allowed to hurt ourselves. So that was never allowed. But the idea of indulging in physical pleasures is what I think he's trying to teach in this Mishnah. But exactly like you're saying, the Rebbe said, like, sleeping on the floor and not allowing yourself to live is not the way for our generation. What else I just want to share on that? Okay, yeah, thank you. And just for those that were on Adina's Torah and Tea last week, I studied a little bit with Adina. We opened up some Talmud texts to research, and one of them, Adina was teaching about Rabbi Akiva's wife. Her name was Rachel, which is actually Adina's middle name, and Rabbi Akiva and his wife lived a very difficult life. They actually slept on the floor. They slept on hay, to the point where in the morning Rabbi Akiva would have to pick the hay out of his wife's hair. But they did it not out of choice. They did it out of utter poverty. Eventually, they inherited the fortune of her father and made some other money, and they changed their lifestyle instantly. And one last thing, there's a beautiful example here. I've always appreciated and liked this example, and I hope this resonates with you as much as it resonates with me. Hold on one second. All right, were you guys able to hear me clearly? Yeah? Was it a little bit low? Okay, fine. I hope this example works as well as it resonates with me, realizing that there is what seems like an easier life, which is the life of the American dream. And I'm not putting down that life. It's good to enjoy life, but realizing where our primary concern needs to be. So there's a beautiful example of two donkeys, and both of these donkeys are carrying a load on their back. One is carrying a load of salt, and he's suffering. It's heavy. It's not even enjoyable. And the other is carrying a load of weightless sponge, just a bunch of sponge. He's transporting sponge. And it was so light, and he was jumping on the hills and laughing at the other one, and it was such an opposite. And then they can encounter a river, and they have to travel through the river. The one that had the salt and was grumpy before, the salt melted, and he had no load on his back anymore. The one that went in with the sponge, before it was so light, now became so heavy and so unbearable. And I think I don't know, that's the metaphor, but I think the lesson, what we could learn from it, is that what seems almost like a very light, easy type of lifestyle, fun and whatever, a lot of times it's deep down, it's maybe artificially nice, and I'm not putting it down, but you have to make sure that you have what's called in Hebrew tochen, that there's something inside that is strong and that may seem burdensome at times, but in truth, it's the greatest expression of who you are. And you have to take it and dance with it and be joyous with it. And that's our Torah and our mitzvot. Okay, and that's actually a beautiful time around Shavuot to analyze that. The idea that at times Torah seems a little inconvenient and difficult, but in truth, it's at other times it just grows you and allows you to be really fortunate. Okay, enough of my analysis. Let's go to Mishnah 5. My mother-in-law, Babi, would you like to read Mishnah 5?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do not look for greatness for yourself, and do not desire honor. The good deeds you do should be greater than your Torah learning. Do not desire the table of kings and their riches, because your table, your greatness through serving God, is greater than their fancy tables and physical riches, and your crown of honor is greater than their physical crown. God, your boss, is trusted to pay you the reward for your work of serving him.
Awesome. Every line of this is beautiful. My favorite is the good deeds that you do should be greater than your Torah learning. A person could be studying Torah all day, but your action has to be much stronger and louder. And the Rebbe would never give a talk without saying these three words, Hamaisa hu ha'ikar, which means action is the primary. The Rebbe would give a 6-hour talk and say all that is only nice if it leads to an action. And the Rebbe would always have a call of action. What lesson can we learn from this verse? How it affects my day-to-day life as a Jew, how it affects my day-to-day life in my relationship, etc., in my business ethics, etc., etc. It has to have a practical application for it to be worth anything, or for it to stick, I should say. Awesome. Anyone else has, Jolie, is there any commentaries that come to mind as you're reading in your commentary? Or
You know what I was thinking, Rabbi, is number 5 seems to unpack number 4 a little bit. We kind of land on number 5, which is kind of a gentler way to explain, crave not the table of kings. So you can see it, be live an ascetic life, or simply crave not the table of kings. This is it's just a different approach, almost seeming to say the same thing.
Same thing with a different angle.
Yeah.
I also think that it kind of says, don't compare yourself to others. In a way,
right.
Don't think that somebody else, that the king or whatever, it's so wonderful and I don't have it. Like, don't look at the other ones and what they have and what, compare yourself.
Nice. Debbie, is there anything that comes out of your book over there?
Not so much that I read on this mission, as a little bit on the other one, but not on this one that I want to share.
Nice. Okay, let's take Mishnah 6. Who's next on the screen? Adrian, are you able to read? If your cat's around you, the cat could join in for the Mishnah too. Let's go for you. You want me to unmute you, or do you want to unmute yourself? Okay, I will unmute you. Okay, Adrian, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Torah is greater than being a Kohen or a king, because being a king comes with 30 special privileges and responsibilities, such as the restriction of anyone else sitting in his place or riding on his horse. Being a Kohen comes with 24 gifts that must be given to Kohanim, such as the first fruits, challah, and the terumah contribution. Whereas acquiring and mastering of the Torah requires 48 qualities. They are constant learning, careful listening, verbally pronouncing what is being learned, an understanding heart, awe, fear, humility, happiness. You scroll, please.
Yeah, I'm going to scroll, and I'm going to test all of us on all 48 as we're going through the list.
Okay.
And then you're going to have to do it backwards. I'm kidding.
I
You know,
can't
let
do
me
it forward, so maybe that'll work. Purity, I think, is where we are.
Okay, go for it.
Happiness, purity, serving Torah scholars, having close friends, discussing and debating Torah with fellow students, calmly and carefully analyzing what you learn, knowing Tanakh, knowing Mishnah, limiting your business activity, limiting your worldly activity, limiting your worldly pleasure, limiting your sleep, limiting your conversation, limiting your laughter, being slow to anger.
I'm just going to scroll all the way because it's a pretty long Mishnah. Okay, go for it.
Having a good heart, having faith in the sages, accepting suffering, being someone who knows his place, recognizing his strengths and weaknesses, who is happy with what he has, who makes a protective fence around his words by choosing his words very carefully, who does not take credit for his achievements, who is beloved by others, who loves God and loves people, who loves righteousness, who loves justice, who loves criticism because it will help him improve his ways, who keeps far away from honor, who is not arrogant with his learning, who does not enjoy when he must give a ruling in Jewish law, who carries the burden with his friend, who judges his friend favorably by giving him the benefit of the doubt, who places his friend on the path of truth, who places him...
Adrian, you got a really long one. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, who places him on the path of peace, who thinks carefully and deeply in his studies, who asks questions and answers other people's questions, listens to his teacher and adds to what his teacher says, who learns in order to teach, who learns in order to know what to do, who makes his teacher wiser by asking good questions, who properly understands what he hears and who says something in the name of the person who said it. In fact, you have learned, whoever says something in the name of the person who said it brings redemption to the world. As it says in the book of Esther, and Esther told the king in Mordecai's name, that Bigtan and Teresh were planning to kill King Ahasuerus. This eventually led to the miracle of Purim and the redemption of the Jewish nation. What does it mean to say something in the name of?
So when we learn, you'll see throughout the entire Mishnah, whenever someone has a teaching that they learned from their teacher, they would always quote it from the source. They would always say who taught it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings redemption. And actually, there's a commentary here that says, just on the last text, because obviously it's the most resonant in our mind right now, that it does redemption to the world, but when you quote something in the name of the person who taught it to you, it also brings redemption to the text. Because as long as you took credit for something, when really someone else taught it to you, that teaching is remaining somewhat exiled in between you and the teacher. When you relate it and you say, I learned this from so-and-so, you're actually releasing and redeeming the quality of that text heavenward. And these 48, by the way, according to Torah law, any Torah that we have, and back in the day, nowadays we have nice, healthy, strong Torahs, but pre-Holocaust, and they had to write very small Torahs. In the times of pogroms, they would run with them. The law is that you're not allowed to have a Torah scroll that has less than 48 lines on each column. The Torah has obviously many columns with a bunch of words on each column, but the minimum amount of lines has to be 48. to remind ourselves of these 48 qualities listed here in this chapter, of the ways we attain Torah scholarship and the way we attain, how do you get Torah? There's such beautiful ones, and really each one, if you focus on one of them, it's powerful. For me, it's all the ones that really have to do with a friendship. One of them is, if you love criticism, the only way you could learn is if you're able to accept words of criticism in your Torah study, and obviously relating something in someone else's name, but all these, judging his friend favorably, giving him the benefit of the doubt, which we've learned about before. Maybe I'll zoom out so you could try to see more than just a few of them. I'll start again from the beginning, and maybe I'll be quiet for 30 seconds just to let everyone ponder on what we've been learning. But it's a very powerful text. So let's just see. Okay, so maybe I'll scroll down a little more so everyone can see the second part, and then I'll love to hear anyone's commentary.
You know, Rabbi, I was thinking about what this seems like. Seems like an operating manual of, and I would, if this were an essay that I were writing, not that I would write an essay like this, but if it were, I would entitle it How to Be. That's what this seems like to me. An operating manual of how to be. It's very beautiful.
Thank you. So that's very well said. So, but then I'm stuck on one of them. I mean, many of them we would have to ponder, and it could take us hours to properly understand it. But how would you understand that? Anyone that has any enlightenment on it, please share. Limiting your laughter. Because somewhere earlier, someone maybe could direct me to where that was. It has to be done with humility, we said, but with joy. Where was that? Was that later or before? Limiting laughter. Let me just. Did we say? Adrian, did you say somewhere joy? Happiness. Here you go.
It's in the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you, Debbie. Happiness. But over here, limiting your laughter. What would you explain as the difference between the two of them?
Well, sometimes laughter could be a distraction, and you can just roll with the next joke.
Laughter can be frivolous.
Very well said. Yeah. Laughter
So
can be frivolous.
I have some thoughts.
Sorry?
I have some thoughts.
Yeah, please.
As I was going through, I mean, it felt, okay. So I get a lot of pleasure from all of my groups and Torah studies, whether it's Torah or Talmud or Pirkei avot or whatever. And I was going through here and I was listening to Adrian reading, and I'm thinking that all the things that it seems like it felt to me like the thing that was missing was you're supposed to be doing all these things and limiting yourself, and there was no joy to it, which is the emotion that I get when I'm involved in all these groups. And then as I started to go back and review these 48, I was actually shocked to see that joy is in the list here as one of the 48 things. And I think that one word doesn't apply to all the other things that it's telling you either to do or not to do. Because it kind of makes me feel guilty in a way for getting some of the pleasure that I get out of doing the studies and being involved in the groups that I'm involved in. I don't know, maybe it kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
No, it's good. It's good that we're having this conversation today, because I'll tell you, every morning, one of my early morning commitments every day, I learn Talmud at 6:30 in the morning with a friend of mine, a Chabad rabbi in Brattleboro, Vermont. And just today we're learning Tractate Shabbat, page 30 on the second side, B. It has. I'll just tell it to you in Hebrew and I'll translate it. It says, "Ein oimdim lespalel, lo mitech atzlos, v'lo mitech atzvos, v'lo mitech kalos roish, ela mitech simcha shel dvar mitzvah v'chein ledvar halacha." That's the Hebrew. What it means is you can't properly pray or study Torah not in a state of sadness or a state of laziness, a state of frivolity, which is exactly what my mother-in-law was talking about, maybe a few more things. You have to be in a state of complete joy for prayer and for Torah study. And in fact, one of my favorite teachers, and the reason why that stands out is because he was the nicest teacher. His name was Rabbi Tzaitlin in Montreal. And a few years after he taught us, he had a stroke and he couldn't teach anymore. And I felt so bad for the students that they couldn't participate in his class. He was such a dedicated teacher. He would say like this, and let me just say one more thing. Right, the next line in the Talmud, Debbie, it also says that in order to properly teach, you have to be in a state of joy. In order for Torah to properly permeate, you need to be in a state of joy. And the Talmud right away says, what are you talking about? Another place that says you have to learn with fear, with trepidation, and realizing this is God's Torah. So that one answer is that it's talking about the teacher or the student. The teacher has to teach with love and joy. The student has to learn, has to receive with reverence and respect. But another answer is, one is at the beginning, you have to have joy, but once you get into it, you have to feel and respect the text. So my teacher, the Talmud actually continues that Rabbah, one of the greatest teachers of the Talmud, before he would begin teaching, he would actually say a joke, open up the minds of the students. They would laugh, like physically. He would get them to laugh, and then he would be able to teach them because their mind was broadened. So my teacher said he doesn't have jokes. He said, I'm a corny joke person, or I forgot his expression, but I say corny jokes, that's what he said. So every morning, he would give us a treat. And that, he would say, would broaden our minds. So he would give us a candy every morning to make us happy. My point that I'm trying to say with that is that we need to be in a state of joy in order for Torah to be permeated. And I don't think any of these contradict that. I think you need I would basically, after all that, Debbie, I'm saying I agree with you that one must be in a state of joy in order for the Talmud, the Torah text to stick. Some of the other ones that really stand out, and back to the minimizing laughter, there is a commentary here, he quotes from the Tanya that says some laughter is positive. And I guess that's what I was saying before, the laughter of saying in order, before my sermons, a lot of times I say a joke. You may have heard it 50 times, but I'm still going to say it because we start off with a joke to lighten people's mind and heart. One of my favorite ones, and Mrs. Berger, let me just say one more thing that's just on my mind, and then I'll definitely bring it up. Maybe I shouldn't have scrolled so quickly. Hold on one second. One of the coolest ones I like is these words. I'm going to read it in the Hebrew and then translate it. Binat Halev. Bina is the Hebrew word for understanding. And in fact, Chabad, the B of Chabad, stands for Bina. Chachma, Bina, and Dat, which means understanding. Lev is the heart. The heart is usually associated with our emotions. You don't understand in the heart, you understand in the mind. You feel with the heart. Right? Look at the translation. It's an understanding heart. How would you relate these two words together? Either it's an understanding mind. How do you have an understanding heart? We actually say these words in our daily prayer. Before the Shema, there's a blessing called Ahavat Olam, which means an eternal love. In there, we pray to God and we say these words. Father, merciful Father, grant our heart understanding, to comprehend and to discern, to perceive and to learn and to teach. But the word over there again, Tein belibenu bina, give our heart understanding. So we have a similar expression, and I would love to hear anyone's feedback on how you understand understanding of the heart.
Empathy.
So empathy, you would say, first of all, I love your name. Empathy is an understanding. That's right. That starts
Compassion.
with compassion. Okay. How would you? So like in the state of Torah, how would you learn empathy? Like, what's your empathetic state in Torah? Meaning, acquiring Torah, it requires empathy to another or empathy for the Torah study.
I was thinking empathy to another.
Treat other people like the way you would treat yourself, like Rabbi Hillel said.
Yeah, so all that empathy and being kind to other, respect and all that, I agree with. But over here, I think it's talking about yourself, meaning how do you acquire Torah is by being a careful listener, by verbally understanding. So maybe empathy. Okay. Purity. So you're saying empathy to another is an understanding heart.
Not just to another, but also to anything. I mean, I think being able to put yourself into any kind of narrative. It's more than, I think the ability to empathize is putting yourself outside of yourself into, whether it's something that you're reading or whether it's putting yourself into the mind of someone else.
Beautiful. Nice. Yeah, and that's the best way to, that's very nice. Thank you. And I'm seeing here, he also quotes from the Maharal. He says the perception or understanding of the heart, he translated it in this book as a perception. He says it's devotion. When you're perceiving something, you're devoted to the text, you're devoted to seeing it through. You're not just going to close it after a while. You're going to be devoted to it, number one. And another commentary says over here is perceiving the depth, because every text of Torah, there's the depth of it, which is the main line, but there's also the ramifications. There's the general outline of it, but then there's the inner essence of the text. And that takes a perception to really probe the layers and get to the bottom of it, and then see the broader ramifications as well. But you have to start with the base, with the pinnacle point. And one last commentary on that also, he says, if he applies his heart to understand, he will understand what was placed in his heart at Sinai, since every soul returns and remembers what it received. So if you want to remember what was received at Sinai, somehow it's connected to your heart. Okay, and one last, I don't see this in the commentaries, just what's coming up to mind, and I know we're lingering on this text for quite a while, so maybe if anyone else has anything else. But one of the, also a really nice one is discussion with friends, where I'm hovering with my mouse. Having close friends, that's number one. And then also discussing and debating Torah with fellow students. So we know that, me and you, we all know that when we discuss Torah with another, the Torah is a lot clearer and almost like magical, using a term Jolie used before. It just comes alive. When you study yourself, that's one way. But when you study with another and you discuss it and you get clarification or hearing their angle and perspective, it really brings the text to life. But even before that, I'm excited hearing these words. You would almost think they go together. You obviously, if you're discussing it with fellow students, you have friends, but it's like two separate things. Forget about the Torah for a moment. You need to have friends in order for your Torah to count, in order for your Torah to stick. Once you have friends, you should also discuss it with them. But it seems like one of the 48 steps is to have good friends. And it's one of the most incredible teachings you can have in Torah. And I don't think this is in the Constitution, but it is clear in Torah. You have to acquire friends. You have to have mentors, but you also have to have friends that you could bounce ideas off of. Mentor, you go for mentorship and guidance. Friend, you go to vent, to what's the words? To speak out loud. That's really what a friend is. And it's if you have one good friend, one old friend is better than 20 new friends. And not old in terms of years or old in terms of childhood that you have them from, but someone who really gets you, really cares for you. And just to end this last commentary with a really cool text of Chassidus, in 1919, Taf Reish Ayin Tes, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Shalom Dov Ber, he gave a teaching of Chassidus. This was in Rostov, which is some far-flung city in Russia, where he was escaping from the communist, and he ended up dying there, and he's buried there. He wrote a really cool text. He said there's a spiritual cure for every type of malady in the world. A person could have ego, and there is a cure for them. A person could have jealousy, and there's a cure for them. There's a certain method, a healing method of what you have to do to overcome that. Meditations, etc. There's one thing that there is no cure for. Someone who is an, I don't know the English word for it, someone who's an artificial person. Someone, in Hebrew, the word is a chitzon. Someone who takes things with an only external way of looking at it. Someone
Shallow.
who, what?
Shallow.
Say it again?
Someone who's shallow.
A shallow person. But also, like, they could be nice, but they hear something from another person. They hear something inspiring, and they hear a rabbi saying, you have to be nicer how you treat other people in a sermon. And he's like, that's so true. Those people never treat other people well. And he just doesn't even apply it to himself. He right away is looking at everyone else. He takes everything on the outside surface. He never absorbs anything. He never allows anything to penetrate and speak to him. It's actually the biggest insult you could give a chassid. You could curse them out and they're fine with it. But if you call them a chitzon, they take it very seriously. Because a chitzon, it's the antithesis of chassidus. Chassidus is all about absorbing a message, taking it very personalizing it, taking Torah and making it yours, applying it, resonating with a message. That's Chassidus 101. A chitzon is doing the exact opposite. So a chitzon is someone who's taking everything outside. So the opposite of a chitzon is a pnimi. And the expression in Chabad is Chabad mont pnimius. Chabad demands an innermost application of something. Internal, taking things internally. So anyway, my point is that the Chabad Rebbe says there's a cure to everything besides for an artificial person. A chitzon, this person that takes everything with an outside layer, what could you tell him? He's taking it only externally. You can never get through to him. So he says in 1919, he came up with 3 cures, a cure that has 3 ingredients to it, I should say. One is having good friends, having friends that are there for you, that care for you, and will get through to you. That's number 1, acquiring friends. Number 2, breaking yourself in Torah learning, totally submerging yourself in text of Torah and getting lost in it. Meaning, not saying, "Oh wow, I learned the page, I'm doing great." Just immersing yourself in Torah study. Okay, I can't forget the 3rd. Hold on. And the other one, I'm not sure how to learn it. Shviras atzmo, which means breaking oneself. You would call it self-abnegation, but that sounds like a very bad thing. It's totally taking yourself out of the context, removing yourself from the picture. And in simple Hebrew, it's called bitul, which means humility or surrender. Surrender could be a very weak thing, or surrender could be the strongest, most powerful, liberating action of surrender. Humility. Yes, Shira?
You remove the ego.
Exactly, removing the ego. But to do it, you have to break that ego. Then we're going to get to it in Tanya in chapter 29, where it talks about this bitul, how to get through. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work. Anyway, that's my little analysis. We could try to cover some more. All right, thank you, Adrian. Oh yes, Debbie, I see your hand up.
So it also, one of the things that I realized is it makes a huge difference what stage in our lives we're doing this study. This isn't the first time I've studied Pirkei Avot, but it is the first time I've studied it in depth and to the extent that I have, but where I am in my life now, it means something completely different to me than, when I studied it before and I didn't understand it. And now I'm at a point in my life where I can understand what the Talmud is teaching, what the Torah, how many times have we gone through and, read from beginning to end the 5 books, and but every single time it means something different. And now, as we get older and more mature, it's so you absorb it and it means something completely different.
Very well said. Beautiful. Thank you. And just to add, to say everything that's in line with what we've been learning in Mishnah is that it's not only because you're learning it in such a deeper way, it's because you have such a good teacher teaching you. So just to add all the ego that the Mishnah is saying, have ego, have ego, have ego. So to add to my ego, I'll add that in just for you, Debbie. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That was very well said. Thank you. That's so important. Thank you.
But that does make all the difference. Kidding aside, that does make all the difference in the world. Is who your teacher is, and yes, you rank very high among one of the best.
Thank you. My mother-in-law, for the record, my mother-in-law, are you there? Could you hear? No, but in truth, what you said is very, very right. That you could learn the same thing, but it could have a whole different meaning when you're learning it at a certain age with experience and with a certain life mindset, and it's different when you're young and when you're old. When you're beautiful. Thank you. All right, I want to definitely try to squeeze in a couple more. All of these are amazing. So let's try at least 7, 8, and 9. We'll go for. It's another long one. Let's see. Peter, you read. Ma, you read. Adrian read. Debbie, did you read yet?
I did not read.
Okay, go ahead. You want to read Mishnah 7?
Yeah, can you make it a little bigger? There you go.
Oh, then let me narrow up. And Vivian, I'll have you next. I don't know if you're able to unmute yourself after this Mishnah, but if you're, oh, perfect. Yep, you're there. Okay, awesome. Great.
And Torah is great because it gives life in this world and in the world to come. That's interesting. To those who learn it and do what it says. As it says in Proverbs, because they, the words of the Torah, are life to the person who finds them, and they are a cure for his whole body. It also says there, the Torah will be a cure for your body and marrow for your bones, making them stronger. It also says there, the Torah is a tree of life for those who hold on to it, and those who support Torah learning are fortunate. It also says there, words of Torah in your mind are like a graceful decoration for your head, and words of Torah spoken from your throat are a beautiful necklace for your neck. It also says there, Torah will give your head a graceful decoration, and it will give you a crown of beauty. It also says there, indeed, says the Torah, by learning me, your days will be increased, and years of life will be added to you. It also says there, you want to scroll?
Yeah.
Please. Long life is at the Torah's right. If we learn Torah for the correct reason, because it is a commandment, it will give us long life in addition to wealth and honor. Wealth and honor are at its left. Even if we learn Torah for other reasons, and not only because it's commandment, it will still give us wealth and honor. It also says there, the words of the Torah will add to your length of days, your years of life, and your peace.
Awesome. Amazing. So when it says that it also says there, it's referring to the original source that you quoted at the beginning, which is the book of Proverbs, which was written by Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon. All of this is awesome. Very well said. He had some such poetic things. But my favorite is what you were saying towards the end is even if you're not doing it for the right reasons, you should still do it, right? You fake it until you make it. A person may say, I'm doing the Torah, but I'm doing it for ulterior motive or for whatever. It's okay. Do it nonetheless. Eventually it'll come for the right reasons, but don't stop doing it. There's a lot to share on that, but that's beautiful. Awesome. Thank you. Does anyone have anything they would like to add to this?
That sounds contradictory, that you're not supposed to do it for the wrong reasons, but you're still going to be rewarded when you do it for the wrong reasons.
Right.
Okay, so I have two things. I'll do the bottom first and then the top. One is kind of funny. We have a very close friend from our congregation at Rodef who is 96. And she, for years and years and years and years, has been a very active Torah study person.
Nice.
And she's not happy right now about being 96. And she's just really done with life.
Yeah.
And so now I'm reading this and I'm seeing that all the Torah studying that she did is what's gotten her to be 96, and maybe I need
Oh,
to tell her
wow.
to stop studying
Oh,
Torah.
that's a nice perspective. Wow. What's
I
her name?
kind of
Who
say
is
that
this?
kind of funny, but
That's
okay.
wonderful.
Go back up to the top, and at the beginning I was reading about in the I think in the very beginning, and it gives life in this world and in the world to come. So maybe a sidebar question, but do you believe or do you think that in the world to come, and then it goes on to say a little bit more, and they're a cure for his whole body. Do you think or believe that in the world to come you're made whole?
Whole meaning like wholesome, like entire?
Yeah, so the reason I asked the question is because as soon as I read that, what popped into my head is it had to have been February of 2008, when I took my mother to the doctor, and he told her that she needed, this was in February, that she needed to have her leg amputated. And of course she got scared, it was very scary to hear that word. And in the beginning, she wasn't ready to do that in February. And when we went home from the doctor, we were talking about it. And the thing that she said was what popped into her head and what was bothering her. It wasn't losing her leg. I mean, she was in a wheelchair anyway, so it's not like she was up walking around. But it was because you're supposed to die whole, complete. And she was worried about losing her leg and not being able to die whole.
Wow.
So, but then you hear these, and then she lost it until August. And when we woke up on August 1st, and she's told me I can't take it anymore. And we called the doctor, and on August 8th, she had the operation. But anyway, it makes me think, and that's what begs the question is, do you think that now she's whole?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I digressed a little bit, but that's
no, that's good. That's good. That's good. Thank you. Yeah, but absolutely. Her definitely home. All right, let's do Mishnah 8, and we'll try to squeeze in a story in Mishnah 9, and then we'll call it a night. Vivian, if you're around.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, I love hearing your voice. Mishnah 8, go for it.
Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda says, in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, beauty, strength, riches, honor, wisdom, and maturity, old age, and children. It is good for the righteous to possess these traits so they can be more effective in teaching about God and sanctifying his name, which in turn is good for the world. As it says in Proverbs, ripe old age is a crown of beauty, which also represents riches. It can be found on the path of righteousness. It also says there, the beauty of young men is their strength, and the beauty of old men is ripe old age. It also says there, grandchildren are the crown of the elderly, and the glory of children are their fathers. And it says in Isaiah, due to their painful embarrassment and shame, the wicked will see even the moon and sun to be dark when the Lord, God of all creations, rules on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and honor is given before his mature and being fitting for the righteous. All of them were fulfilled by Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi and his sons, who possessed all these traits.
Wow, so it's 7 traits, and just to go through the 7 traits, beauty. Let's already just understand. It's a good trait to have to be able to, if you possess these traits, it's good for you. Beauty, what does beauty have to do with Torah or with a good trait for Judaism? So there's a commentary here in the name of the Rebbe that, taken from Meiri, who was a commentary from the 16th century. And actually his name was Menachem, so I'm a big fan of him. And Meiri, and the Rebbe quotes it, is that a person who's beautiful, meaning he's put together or she's put together and looks presentable, they're in a better position to influence others. So if you're seeking to influence others in a positive way, you should make sure that you're well kept, that you're not too unkept, I guess. Okay. All these are really nice. Riches. So everyone, if you want me to be a better rabbi, make me rich. Hint, hint. I think that's one of them that they're saying here. Wisdom, maturity, old age, and children. What is old age? So he says over here, old age refers to the maturity gained through study. Ripe old age refers to the quality of equanimity and composure. So that's maturity and old age. Interesting. Okay.
Okay, my translation says old age, and then it says hoary age, Hoary. I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
We say it in our Siddur. We say the last words of prayer after Aleinu. We say Vadzikna aniu vatseva ani espol, in their elderly years and in their hoary years. It's also, I never understood hoary. It doesn't sound like a normal thing, but I think it just means old. Anyone? My mother-in-law spent many years in England. Maybe you have a more specific translation. No? Okay.
Not really, no.
Not really? Okay. I think it just means old age. I don't think it means anything inappropriate or... Okay. Let's conclude. Did everyone have I think, David, I think you're the only one that didn't have a chance to say yet. So we'll conclude with a story. It's a good story. Rabbi Yossi.
Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says, I was once walking on the road while reviewing Torah, and a certain man met me. I didn't notice him, and so he greeted me first. He said, Shalom, and I answered back to him. Shalom, he said to me, Rabbi, from which place are you? I told him, I am from a great city of Torah scholars and sages. My purpose in life is to be occupied with Torah. He said to me, Rabbi, if you would be willing to live with us in our place, I would give you $1 million golden dinar coins, as well as precious stones and pearls, so you can be free to learn and also give a lot of charity. I told him, even if you would give me all the silver and gold and all the precious stones and all the pearls in the world, I would only live in a place of Torah. And that is what is written in the book of Psalms by David, king of Israel. God, the Torah of your mouth is more precious to me than the thousands of gold and silver pieces that I own. Furthermore, when a person passes away, no silver, gold, precious stones, or pearls join him and go with him to the world to come. Only his Torah learning and good deeds will go with him to the world to come. As King Solomon says in Proverbs, when you walk, the Torah will guide you. When you lie down, it will watch over you. When you wake up, it will speak to you. When you walk, it will guide you in this world. When you lie, when you lie down, and it will watch over you in the grave after you pass away. And when you wake up, it will speak for you in the world to come. And it says in Haggai, the silver is mine and the gold is mine, says the Lord, God of all creation. So a person cannot really own gold and silver, whereas Torah becomes part of a person and therefore remains with him in the world to come.
Okay, what stop there for a second. This is an amazing, great way to end the class. It's a beautiful Mishnah. Let's just break it up a little bit. First of all, Rabbi Yossi, there's a law, and I just read a story of the Rebbe about this, that a rabbi always has to be the one greeting the other first. You should always be the one to greet others. You would think, let them greet the rabbi. The rabbi deserves the honor. But no. The rabbi has to be the one to greet other people first, meaning the shalom usually should be from the rabbi to them, meaning showing them a favorable face and being kind and respectful to them. And there was someone actually asked for guidance from the Rebbe before going out as a rabbi, and the Rebbe said, greet everyone. Be kind to everyone, meaning you're walking down the street, you don't know that person, still say hello, good morning, because it's important for you to give a favorable image and a favorable representation and a kiddush Hashem. So that's why he didn't see him, and therefore he couldn't be the first one to say shalom. But try to understand this story. They're saying, come to us, we'll give you money, we're looking for a rabbi. And he said, nope, I'm not going. Isn't this the antithesis of Chabad? we go to places, they don't give us money, but we still go. And here he's being offered $1 million. Why would he not take it? What was the problem with going? So he's saying, of course, I want to live in a place of Torah, but really, is that our purpose? Of course, we should live in a good place, but we should be using an opportunity to teach Torah to others. He has this opportunity, and he's refusing it. So the Rebbe has a beautiful commentary, and let's see, he quotes it here from the Maharal, but the Rebbe would mention it, that the way the question was, would you be willing to live with us in our place? The way the question was phrased, or maybe this would be footnote 2, maybe we'll check that out. The way that he understood from the questioner that their point, and Peter, you're going to appreciate this based on what we were talking about a couple months ago, their point was, we want to buy our way into Torah, which means we're hiring you to be representing us. You study Torah for us, and we could do what we want. So we need to look good, so we need to have some scholar, but our job is take the money and be quiet. Let us do what we want. Let us live how we want. You're going to be with us, means secondary to us. You'll be subordinate to us. We'll call the shots. The president is in charge of the synagogue, and you're just the rabbi that smiles and agrees to what the board decides. That's basically what they wanted, of at least how we can understand it, because otherwise it doesn't really make sense. But the way you can understand from that analysis, you would be willing to live with us in our place, meaning it's staying our place. We're the boss. You will just be the picture on the wall that we look like a holy synagogue. And that actually really resonates because, Peter, I think back in January, Peter was telling me that there could be people, or I think he was quoting a commentary on the Torah, and it was more of a contemporary commentary that was saying that about the idea of, Peter, you could correct me, about people that buy their way into membership so they could consider themselves to be part of a synagogue, but really that's they're buying their way. Peter, what was the word you said? You gave a better word. Peter, am I saying something right? Let me unmute you. Hold on. Peter, does that sound right?
I don't quite recall.
All right, maybe I'm making it up then. No, I think I remember we were at around their Shabbos table. I remember you telling it to me. Anyway, maybe I'm not explaining it properly. But the idea of people, the notion of people buying their rights to Judaism and feeling, okay, I gave some money, scream a Hail Mary, and I'm safe, and I'm good. But in truth, the idea is Torah has to be your own workout, and you can't rely on someone to be doing it for you, and you have to do it on your own. Okay, anyway, that's my little...
The membership is different than hiring a rabbi.
Yeah, I just gave that. That wasn't Peter's words. I was just giving that, but it's more like an attitude. I'm just going to buy my way in, but not really do anything more. I'm just going to let others do it for me, or associate just by making my grandmother happy.
Yeah.
And, that type of thing. Anyone has had any comments on that? Maybe I could get some backlash for that. We'll see.
That reminds me of the personality you were talking about who doesn't embrace, or what was the name of that? Not the chitzo, the... Oh yeah,
the chitzon, that's right.
Yeah, the chitzon. It's like that, a little bit like the image of holiness or something.
Yeah, well, that's very well. Exactly. I want to be like that way, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to just have it on the wall. That's a chitzon.
Also, hori, by the way, just as a side note here, it means extremely old. As in ancient hoary legends or biblical, it's like as if with age he bowed his hoary head. So it just means very, very old, ancient.
Is that from the dictionary? Where are you looking at?
It's from the dictionary, yeah. And this is a biblical idiom too, as well. I mean, it just means extremely old or gray or white.
Yeah.
And biblically, it means gray or white with extremely old.
I don't like the word so much.
All right.
I vote we take it out of the dictionary.
All right. Yeah, okay. Take it out of the Torah. You want to write a letter, Rabbi?
No, but the idea is that we over here it actually used a different translation for it. Right over here it said maturity is one word, but seva over here just said old age or ripe old age. I think in Jolie, in your comment, in your translation, it uses ripe old age, which is the term used actually in the previous Mishnah, chapter 5. We didn't get to it, but the last Mishnah talks about the age of 70 is for ripe old age. Ben Shivim, it talks about all the different milestones or plateaus you get to at a certain age. 5 is when you start studying the verses of the Torah, Chumash, and 10 is when you start studying Mishnah. 13 is when
that
you
was a couple of weeks ago.
have
But
mitzvahs.
if you notice that, maybe it's
Hold on 1 second. So by 70, we just celebrated my in-laws' 70th in the summer, and the wording in the Mishnah used is Ben Shivim L'Seva. 70 is for ripe old age, to be satisfied in your old age and get nachas. So in that translation, maybe it would be hori, but I definitely prefer the idea of ripe old age for 70. Yeah, sorry, Debbie, what were you saying?
But maybe, maybe it's just because Marin is so wonderful and beautiful place to live. But you notice the age of our community is very, very high. We have so many members of the tribe, so to speak, that are hoary and in their 90s and hundreds that used to be unheard of. I mean, poor Betty Porgy, may she rest in peace. She just died last month. She was 106.
Wow, I know her.
So but look at our congregations, and everybody here in Marin is we're living to be very, very old.
Thank God. Is 120, we say, till 120, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, everyone. And let me just ask you, now that I unshared the screen and you could see me, were you able to see me when the text was up, or you weren't able to see me?
No.
I can see you.
Oh, so
Yeah,
I guess
we can see
people
you.
have a choice.
We can see
On the top, you could click gallery view or speaker view. So I guess you could choose when I'm sharing a screen if you want to see me, or if you choose not to see me. And I have an in with Zoom. They could tell me who's choosing not to see me on the screen.
I have to go.
We always saw you.
No, it just came up that way.
Okay, interesting. Okay, well, everyone have a good night. Shabbat
Thank you.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
L'chaim,
Thank
be
you.
safe
It was
and
a
healthy.
wonderful
Thanks
class.
so much
Thank
for all
you.
the learning. It was great to learn together. And we should continue doing it because it's a lot of fun.
Yes, it
L'chaim,
is.
Peter, L'chaim, Adrian, thank you for joining. Mrs. Berger and David and
Tommy,
Vivian
Tommy.
and Debbie. Thank you all. And of course, and Stera, I like that name. But the Flintstones, I love you guys. All right. This is great. Let's just
Watch them.
everyone can see them. Shabbat Shalom, Fred and Stera. And we'll see you later.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Be well.